Well, hello everybody. One last time, it's Andrew here to work with you on the last of our audio drama units. This week, we're going to be talking about taking all of those recordings that we made last week. And if you remember last week, we talked about how to do them in sequence or out of sequence. So this week, we're going to do kind of an advanced lesson on how to use the Audacity software to edit all of that together, along with sound effects and music in order to make your finalized audio drama. Now, this week we're going to talk about how to treat your sound so that it sounds the best that it can, how to get rid of any outside noises. And you might hear some outside noises right now in my audio because I'm here in my studio, but I've got the windows open and there are birds chirping and cars and things outside. We're going to talk about how to get rid of some of that noise. We're going to talk about how to apply effects to make sure that the audio sounds good and sounds consistent. And we're going to talk about how to splice the different pieces of audio together if you recorded out of sequence, as we talked about last week, and then how to add those other things in. So by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to create your own audio drama. So from this point on, you're going to be looking at my screen along with me. So let's take a look at our Audacity workspace. Okay, so here we are in our default Audacity environment. And again, if you haven't had a chance to pick this software up, I'm going to include the link in the notes for you or in the description so that you'll be able to download this. This is perfectly free software. It does not cost you anything. And it's great. It's the same software that I use for producing podcasts and for producing professional things for theater and film as well. So it's a really good software package and it doesn't cost anything. We're going to start by opening we want to open up our 3 different audio files that we had last week, right? We had 3, one for each of our characters because we recorded out of sequence. So I'm just going to open those 3 up, and they'll open in separate windows, as you see. That's good. We want them in separate windows. So let's go back over. I want to listen to Joe first, and we can just kind of listen to what that sounds like.
Nah. You mean back there? Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man. Hey, what are you gonna do to us? Anything you say, buddy.
All right, doesn't sound too bad, but we can clean that up even a little bit more. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have to sample our noise. If you'll remember that last week I told you you need to have 5 seconds of silence before you start recording. This is why. It's going to help us take all that noise out of the recording. Now, if I play this for you, you'll hear, and you might have to turn your speakers up a bit, but I'm just going to play the first 5 seconds that are quote-unquote silence in the recording and let you listen to what that sounds like. So what did you hear there? Didn't sound so much like silence after all, right? There's if you turn your speakers up high enough, there's a little white noise in there. It might be the fans in the computer here. It might be the fan in the room. I have a ceiling fan in here. You might be hearing all of those things. Well, we want to take all that out. We don't want that in our recording because it's just extra noise. And quite frankly, we don't need any extra noise. So fortunately, Audacity has the capacity to deal with that built right in. We're just going to first select it, just like I have, where you just click with your cursor and you paint over your first 5 seconds of noise here or so. And you'll see that everything is flat kind of looking here. Now, the rest of it has what's called waveforms in there. Waveforms are, again, they're the visualization of the way our voice moves the air in order to make sound. And so these are all waveforms. These are all different words that are in here. But we want the flat part that's supposed to be silent. So we're going to paint over that. Then we're going to go up to here to effect. We got all kinds of effects. We'll talk about some of these later. We're going to go down to noise reduction first, though. And noise reduction is going to help us take a sample of noise and then tell the computer to take that out of the entire recording. So now that we've got it painted over, step 1 is we press Get Noise Profile. That is telling the computer that this is all noise. We don't want that there. Then, once we've done that, we want to apply that new filter that we've created to the whole track. So we're going to go down here and we're going to press Select, and that's going to select the whole thing. You see how it's all white now. And then we're going to go back to Effect, down to noise reduction. And this time, there's some sliders and some numbers here. We don't really need to play with any of these. Audacity's got it all figured out for us. All we have to do is press OK. And it's going to do it for us. Now, it doesn't look like it's done anything. It doesn't look any different. But if I play that same 5 seconds for you, you might hear something a little bit different than you did the first time. Let's try it out. Now that probably sounded a lot more like 5 seconds of silence to you. Hopefully it did anyway. It did on my end, so I think we're doing well. So the first step is to remove the noise from your recording. The second step is, well, you see how all of these waveforms are kind of uneven. And here we can even, let's go up here, and let's go View, Zoom, and we want to zoom out a little bit here so we can kind of see the whole thing. So you can see they're a little bit uneven, but we want to even those up a little bit. We want to make the sound as even as we can for our listeners so that the sound is pleasing to their ear. So it's not like we're shouting at them sometimes and whispering at them other times. So we're going to paint over all of that again, or again, we could just use the select to do the whole track. We're going to go back to our effects menu, and this time we're going to come down to compressor. Now, a compressor is a special software plugin, in this case, that's going to take those peaks and valleys that you see in the waveform there, and it's going to bring them more into line. It's going to basically make our sound more even and bring it kind of to the sound level that we want. So if our recording's too quiet, it'll help us make that sound better because it will bring it up to the volume level that we want it at. If it's too loud, it'll help us compress it down to a lower volume level. And that's what all these sliders mean. Now, again, I would say just leave these alone. All of these defaults are perfect. Maybe in an advanced lesson someday I'll go into what all these mean, but we don't really need to do anything. All we need to do is click OK. And this time we can see a dramatic change, right? This time Audacity has taken that audio that was kind of quiet and it's brought it up to a volume that maybe is going to be a little more appropriate. Let me go ahead and mute myself, and I'll play this back for you so that you can hear the volume level now.
Nah. You mean back there? Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man. Hey, what are you gonna do to us? Anything you say, buddy.
All right, so that's what it sounds like now that it's been compressed. If you compare that to the kind of the before, this is how it was before. Let's give this a listen.
Nah. You mean back there? Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man. Hey, what are you gonna do to us? Anything you say, buddy.
All right, so it's a little closer to the volume levels that we're going to want for our recording when we use the compressed. So I'm going to do that once again. I'm going to select, Effect, Compressor, and OK. Now, it's closer to the overall volume level that we want, but we still have some kind of jagged peaks, and you see how some of these things get kind of close to the edge of the line, some of these little peaks of the waveform. We don't really want that because that means it's getting into the danger zone, the area where things can start to distort because maybe they're too loud. So we're going to apply another effect to bring our volume into a more consistent level. So compressor helps to bring us up to the level that we want it to. And then the second effect, which is called normalize, is going to help us make the volume more consistent. So if we click normalize, again, I've got my whole track selected. We're going to leave all of these presets alone, and we're going to press OK. And when I do that, you see how it shrunk things down just a little bit? Kind of brought things into a more consistent volume. Let me mute myself again so you can hear what that sounds like.
Nah. You mean back there? Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man. Hey, what are you gonna do to us? Anything you say, buddy.
All right, so that's what it sounds like now with compression. and normalization on it. And so this sound is now pretty close to what we will want to use. There's one last thing that I'm going to show you that you might want to use. And so again, I'll select my whole track. I'll go up to my effect, and I'm going to come down to the graphic EQ, equalizer. And this is, again, just another tool to help us make sure that the voice is in the right range. This time, I'm going to go in and we're going to change our preset. We're going to go to Manage, Factory Presets, and then you see right here where it says Low Roll Off for Speech. We're going to just click on that, and it's going to set these. Now, mine was already set up for that because I use this all the time. But that's going to equalize our voice and just, again, make things sound more consistent and make our high tones and our low tones sound exactly the way that they should, so that someone listening, whether it be through a speaker or headphones, is going to be able to understand everything we say. So let me hit the OK button. It's going to tweak that up a little bit. And now we have our finalized piece of audio. So now we have Joe's audio, and we're prepared to handle that. So let's do the same thing. Let's go over to Partner, and I'm going to go through this a little quicker this time, just so you can kind of see what's going on. So this time, again, I'm going to, let's see, let me get this whole thing in the window. There we go. I'm going to paint over my silence, effect, noise reduction, get noise profile, select the whole track, effect, noise reduction, and OK. Then since my track is still painted, I'm just going to go effect, compressor, OK. That's going to make everything up to the level where I want it. Effect, normalize, OK. And finally, effect, graphic EQ, and OK. So now our sound is treated for our partner as well. Let's go in and do the mogul real fast. Now the mogul, you can see just from the waveform, it looks like I was not speaking as loudly for the mogul as I was for the other ones, or certainly not in this middle section here. And so we're going to have a volume that's pretty uneven here, because sometimes I'm real loud at the beginning, and towards the end I get a little more silent. So our compression and normalization is going to help us with that. But first, let's get our silence, effect, noise reduction, get noise profile, select our whole track, effect, compressor, OK. Well, that's going to help a lot, you can see. Effect, normalize, OK. And finally, we're going to do our graphic EQ and OK that as well. So now all three pieces of sound are treated and are prepared to be edited together to be placed into sequence. Okay, so now that we've got all of our sound treated, now we're going to create a new file so that we have a blank working space. So you can see right here, we've got nothing in the file. We're going to go back to the script, and looking at the script, I can see that our first line is a line from the partner. So let's go back into the partners file. And it's, hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us? So let's see if we can isolate that line here.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us?
Okay, so there's that line. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to paint right over the top of that. I'm going to go to Edit and Copy. And then I'll go back to my new file, and I'll go to Edit and Paste. So now I have that here.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us?
Okay, so this is going to be the partner. And so I'll even just rename this track. You don't have to do this, but you can change the names of your tracks. So I'm going to make this my partner. That way we can just track who is on what line. Okay, and now I'm going to go in and see that it looks like Joe speaks next. Let's grab his first line.
Nah.
Okay, there it is. So I'm going to, again, edit and copy. Go back over to my working file. Click. I want to click to make sure it's not going to paste it into, I don't want to paste it into the same as my partner here, because sometimes I might want to have people overlap, because sometimes when we're talking or having conversations, things overlap. People talk at the same time. And that's hard to do if you've got everybody just on one line or one track here like I have. So I'm going to go ahead and click off of that. I'm going to edit and paste. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a new track. And now let's name this, because we know that this is Joe. All right, there's Joe. So now Joe's got a track, and our partner's got a track. And now, but right now, they're both speaking at the same time, like I said, but it's not in the right order, right? It's going to sound funny if I play it for you. Oops. Oh, I should actually play it. There we go.
Hey, Joe, did you hear?
That's not the way it's supposed to sound. So I want to move this little bit of sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it. I could paint over it, or I can just double click on it to get the whole little bit of sound. I'm going to click these arrows up here. This is what we call our time shift tool. And a time shift tool does kind of what it sounds like. It helps us shift the position of one of our bits of audio in time. And you can see up here on top, this little track it's measured in seconds. So that helps us to tell how long things are. So I'm going to go ahead and select this again. I'm going to select my time shift arrow, and then I'm just going to click anywhere on this, and I can drag it right over here to where I want it. And now I have to listen to it. Because like I said last week, one of the most challenging things when we're creating an audio drama is to make sure that conversations that are recorded out of sequence sound like real conversations. They have the same kind of rhythm that real conversations have. So in order to do that, I'm going to go back up to our selection tool, or our cursor. So we'll click on that. And we'll click just anywhere in the thing. I'm going to go click on this button, which skips me all the way back to the start. And we'll listen to that and see if the rhythm sounds right.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us? Nah.
Yeah, maybe it's a little too fast. I think maybe I'd like a little bit more space in there. So I'm going to choose my time shift tool again. I'm going to back him out a little bit. So let's try it again here. Let's see.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us? Nah.
And that sounds better to me. And again, this is just going to be your personal taste. There's no science to this. It's just what you think a conversation sounds like. So let's go ahead and grab our partner's next line. Let's see here.
I was sure I did.
Okay, we're going to copy that. Go back to our working file. We're going to go back up here to our partner. And we're going to edit and paste, or you can use Control V if you know keyboard shortcuts. So again, let's listen to just a little bit of this. I can take my selection tool. I can put it anywhere so we don't have to listen to the whole thing. We can listen to it from that point where it places that line.
Behind us? Nah, I was sure I did.
Yeah, it's a little fast. Let's use our time shift tool and move that back a little bit. Let's see.
Did you hear something move behind us? Nah, I was sure I did.
Maybe even just a hair more. It gives him time. If you put some more time in there, it sounds like the person's thinking about what they're saying. And one of the reasons that sometimes actors on stage or in movies don't sound realistic is because they're saying their lines so quickly after the person before them speaks. It's because they have those lines memorized. Well, in real conversations, you have to take a second to think about what you're saying before you do. And so adding a little bit of extra space in between lines helps your characters sound like they're thinking about what they're saying, not just reading off a script. Let's try it again.
Did you hear something move behind us? Nah, I was sure I did.
Okay, I like that. I feel like that's pretty good. Let's go back in, and we're going to grab Joe. Next line. Joe's got nice short lines. Edit and copy. Working file. We're going to edit and paste. All right. And you see there's a little bit of a leader here. You can trim those up if you want. You would just select over the portion that you don't want, and then you can just hit edit and delete, or just hit the delete key. I'm going to undo that. I like to leave those in because it gives me a little bit of room. If I want to overlap those a little bit, then I can do that. So let's grab our time shift tool, put that back where it belongs. And you can see Audacity gives me this really great little yellow line when my clips are lined up, when the edges of my clips are lined up. That's an extremely useful tool for you to be able to tell where things are. So let's give us a listen so far.
Did you hear something move behind us? Nah, I was sure I did. You mean back there?
Okay, that's pretty good. Let's see. Let's keep going with this. And then we'll go back to Joe. Not Joe, sorry, back to the partner. Heh. Another short one. Paste. And then let's just grab Joe's next line as well. And you can see how I put some separation in between the lines when I read them. That helps me in the editing process here to be able to grab those lines without having to listen to them a million times, so that I don't have to try and guess where the lines are. I can see the separation. So we're going to copy this last one, and this is Joe's last line before the mogul will begin to speak. And so we'll have kind of this whole first part of this conversation put together before we put our third character in there. So let's give it a listen from the beginning and just see where we're at.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us? Nah, I was sure I did. You mean back there? Yeah. Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man.
All right. Yeah, you know what? I kind of like the way that all sounds. I think it's pretty good. Now, I have a tendency, like a lot of people, to be a perfectionist. So if I wasn't teaching a lesson, I would probably go in and tweak this down to the tiniest little bit. But for right now, I think we're in a pretty good space. We have a pretty natural sounding conversation between these two. Let's go ahead and bring that mogul in. Let's get his first line in here. Where are you, mogul? There you are. Let's just paint over that. Make sure it's...
Gentlemen, don't be alarmed.
Okay. Edit and copy. Go back to our working file. And now again, I want to click off of these lines because I want it to create a new track. So we're going to edit and paste. Now we have a new track. Now, we want to be able to see all of these tracks at the same time. And right now we can't. And so we can do this a couple of different ways. We can, with our view menu here, we can go to track size and we can say fit to height, and that will show us all of our tracks. We can also, if we go to view and track size, if we did fit to width, that would stretch it out so that we would be looking at the whole thing from beginning to end with no space. So, but this is perfect right now, so we can just see the three. Let's rename this track. Let's go to the name menu on this little drop down on the track, and we're going to call this one Mogul. Okay, so now that I have the mogul in there, I can take my time shift tool and I can drag him down here, and you'll see this magical yellow line. That's what Audacity uses to tell us when two clips are lined up together. Again, so that's a great deal. So we just place it there, and now we can listen to, whoops, I'm going to choose our selection tool, and let's listen to just the last bit of Joe's line, and then the mogul to see if it lines up right.
There's no one back there except a dead man. Gentlemen, don't be alarmed.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Let me give it just a little bit more space, maybe there.
There's no one back there except a dead man. Gentlemen, don't be alarmed.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think we're sounding pretty good there. So now I'm just going to go in and I'm going to kind of grab the rest of these things and just move them into place one by one. So let's see here. Let's go back here. And we can go back to the partner next. And it should be... Let's see. Jojo, it's the guy what's dead.
Joe!
Yep, that's the one. Okay. Edit and copy. Now, as you can see, this the mogul's down on the line 3 here. He's down on the 3rd level. And I'm going to be editing up here on the top level, but I want to line these clips up again. Well, that's where that yellow line that I was just telling you about comes into play. Because no matter what track you're on, when you put your selection cursor over it, when it's in line with the track, when it's in line with the end of any clip, it's going to give you that yellow line. So that's going to give me my place that I can click there and then edit and paste. And now I'll have it right in there so you can see.
Don't be alarmed. Joe, it's the guy what's dead. I mean the...
Okay, so now that I've got those lined up kind of more or less where I want them, I may want to time shift this and bring it in just a little bit sooner to make it sound like he's startled. Let's listen to that here.
Don't be alarmed. Joe, it's the guy what's dead. I mean the...
Okay, now, this line is being cut off, right? He says the, but he doesn't get to finish his sentence because the mogul is going to cut him off. Now, this is where we're going to use our different tracks. This is why we've got everybody on different tracks. We're going to use it to make this conversation overlap. So let's go over to the mogul. Let's grab his next set of lines. And you see how when I'm moving between windows, it keeps the last thing that I had highlighted. That helps me find everything as I'm going through here. So let's go. We're going to go edit and copy. Let's go back to our working file. And this is the mogul. So we're going to put him down in the bottom. And what we're going to do is first we'll find the end of that track and we'll line it up. We'll edit and paste. And now here's what it sounds like before I touch it. So here we go.
I mean the... If you follow orders, now...
Now, that doesn't really sound like he got interrupted, right? There was too much space in between that. So I'm going to move this little track down here, and I'm going to move it so that there's a little bit of overlap there. Let's see if I got enough there. Let's see.
I mean the... If you follow...
Well, maybe even a little bit more overlap than that. Let's see.
Joe, it's the guy what's dead. I mean... If you follow orders, nothing.
There we go.
Now keep driving until we get out into the country.
That sounds like there was an overlap between those two things. So there we have it. That is spot on. Okay, now to save some time, I went ahead off camera and just copied and pasted all the rest of those bits of audio in there. And so now you can see this is our whole project right here. It's kind of pretty when you put the whole thing together. If you look at it, it's kind of neat. It looks super complicated. And now you know that it's not very complicated, but if somebody else sees you doing this, they're going to think you're a wizard because it looks very hard. Now, with the exception of the stuff that we touched earlier, I haven't time shifted any of this. So I'm just going to go through, give it a listen, and then we'll make some little tweaks here and there till we get our conversation here in the final form that we want. So let's just give it a listen through once.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us? Nah, I was sure I did. You mean back there? Yeah. Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man. Gentlemen, don't be alarmed. Joe, it's the guy what's dead. I mean... You mean the man you thought was dead. I'm very much alive, and so is the gun in my hand. Hey, what are you gonna do to us? If you follow orders, nothing. Now keep driving until we get out into the country. Anything you say, buddy. He was dead, and now he's alive. I never have been dead, my friend. I was merely in a cataleptic trance. A what? A cataleptic trance, you see. I am able to hypnotize myself as well as others. It's a known fact that expert hypnotists can put a person or themselves into a trance, which very much resembles death. But the whole prison was sure you was dead. There's something funny about all this. You do not believe me? Perhaps you'd like me to try it on you.
All right, that actually sounds pretty good. There are some other small tweaks that I'll make kind of here and there, but with the exception of that, everything actually sounds pretty good, just the way we have it. So that's nice. That doesn't happen very often. Usually you'll have to go in and kind of really painstakingly one thing at a time, go through and listen to everything. Into the country. Anything you say, buddy.
He was dead, and now he's alive.
I never... That's the one right there. Into the country. Anything you say, buddy.
He was dead, and now he's alive.
I never have been dead, my friend. Yeah, I like that. I was merely in a cataleptic trance. Kind of like he cuts him off a little bit again. That's he's taking control of the situation. So again, an interesting thing about being an audio editor in this case is you're working with the performers. The performers are putting on a performance, certainly, but you are kind of acting as a performer yourself. You're deciding the speed at which the conversation happens. And by making decisions like that, by how things overlap and those sorts of things, you're able to shape the overall performance as well. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in a little bit of a background sound. We want a background sound in here because they're actually in a moving vehicle. It says in the notes, in the actions, in the script there, it says that it's an ambulance. And so we're going to put a couple of sound effects in there in order to help this sound like they're driving in a moving ambulance. So let's go and grab some extra sound files here. Okay, so I've grabbed a couple of different sound effects from freesounds.org, which is a great website. You'll find a link in the description. And it's basically it's a sound effects warehouse online, and everything is free. You don't have to pay for anything. Just people like me, we record certain sounds, we upload them, so that anybody who's doing this sort of audio production can use them. So I just grabbed a couple of very simple ones. Again, you can spend hours and hours and hours looking for just the right thing, but I grabbed a couple that I kind of like the sound of. So I'm going to set my scene up here a little bit. Again, I said my guys are supposed to be in an ambulance, and so I'm going to start with the sound of it, that ambulance siren, so we kind of give it the feel that we're outside watching the ambulance, and then I'm going to fade that down, and I'm going to change it into the sound of an engine inside a vehicle to make it sound like we're inside. So let's just pull those couple of sound files up. Again, we're going to file open, and we're going to go to our documents, and we're going to grab ambulance and car engine. We'll open both of those. Again, Audacity will open them in separate files, which is great because now we have all of our windows down here. Let's get rid of this extra one. Let's listen to our ambulance first. Oh, I quite like that. That's really nice. It just gives us a good feel for an ambulance. Now, we don't want this whole thing. You can see it's 19 seconds long. We don't need 19 seconds. Let's take maybe the first 6 seconds or so. Or maybe, actually, you know what? Let's take 8 seconds to give ourselves a little bit more room. And we're going to go, again, edit and copy. Let's go back to our working file here. And we're going to drop it right into the front. Now, let's go edit and paste. Now, let's get all of our tracks on the same thing here again. So track size, we're going to fit to height. That way we've got them all in there. We're going to name this, it's named ambulance, but we're going to put all of our sound effects on one track, because in this case, our sound effects don't really need to, intermingle. We might have 2 different sound effects tracks if we needed that, or maybe even more than that, but we want to keep as few tracks as we can to keep our workspace clean here. So we're going to leave it there, but we are going to rename it. We're just going to call it SFX. That's short for sound effects. And there we have, so you can see it. Now, the only problem we have here is, as you can see, it's going to overlap a bunch of our dialogue, so we need to move all of our dialogue back. It's okay, there's a way to do that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go view, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit to make this easier. And what we're going to do is, just like you would with a word processing program or something like that, I'm going to click and just paint all of the stuff that I want to select at the same time. Now I have all of my bits of dialogue. I've got them all selected together. Now when I choose my time shift tool and I put it on one of these, they're all going to move at the same time, which is what I want. So that's perfect. All right. So I'm going to kind of put that in position. It's not going to give me the yellow line in this case, but that's okay, because I'm going to be working down here on my sound effects line. Now I'm going to go view, I'm going to go track size, and I'm going to fit it to width again so that I get a little better picture of how long this whole scene is. Now, this ambulance sounds fine, but I think to start the scene, I want to actually fade that in a little bit. I want maybe a second's worth of fade in. So I'm going to take, and you can see up here on the top, I've got about a second. So I'm going to take that and, paint down to the beginning. And then I'll go up to Effect, and I can come down here and just simply choose Fade In. And now it's going to fade in. So it's going to be like we're sort of coming into the scene. So let's take a look. Oh, yeah, that's nice. So that's good. And then, I want it to kind of slowly fade out, too. And I think maybe I'll take a couple of seconds to let it fade out. That way I get a little more gradual fade. So let's listen to that. Perfect. And then what we're going to do now, and then there's a little bit of a space before our dialogue begins. That's going to let us bring our car sound in, our car engine sound in. So let's go over to that. Where are you, car engine? And that sounds like this. Just a nice car engine sound. Sounds very simple, right? So we're going to take that. We're going to copy it. Edit and copy. We'll go back over to our working file. We're going to put it down here on this bottom line, paste, and we're going to do something we haven't done yet, which is we're going to line those things up just like that. Boom. Now they're right up, flat up against each other. Now, again, I want to fade that in a little bit, so we'll get that kind of the fade out of the ambulance siren, and then we'll get a fade in on our car, right? So let's listen to what that sounds like.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us?
All right, so that's pretty good. The one thing that you'll notice, though, is that it sounds a little bit loud. And it's also way too short. We've got to, they're in the car this whole time, so we want them to sound like they're in the car this whole time. So we have to address the volume of this particular bit of audio, and we also have to address the fact that it's not long enough. Let's deal with the length of the clip first. We're going to do what we call looping a track. And now to do this loop, because I already applied the fade in effect on this one, I'm going to go back and just get a clean copy of that. So edit and copy. So now I've got that file copied again. I'm going to go right in here where the yellow line is, and I'm going to go edit and paste, and it's going to put it in there again. And then I'll just press my cursor right button to go to the end of it and edit and paste. Cursor right, edit, and paste. And I'll just continue, and I'm gonna use the Control V shortcut just so you don't have to watch me go back up to that menu every single time. And what is gonna end up happening is now we've got one long continuous track. Look at that. And it's gonna sound just like a loop of that sound. So I'm gonna use this button right here. So this button says solo. If we press the solo button, that means when you're listening, you're only going to hear that track. You're not going to hear it. And right now I'm just listening to my sound effects, so I don't need to listen to these other guys. So I'm going to press solo, and let's hear what it sounds like. Okay. Pretty good. A little bit of a dip off in that every time you kind of hear the every time you hear it come to the end of a clip, but because we have our dialogue in, you're not really going to hear that in the final recording, so I'm not going to worry about that. There are ways around that, and again, we can talk about that in a later advanced lesson, but right now we don't need to deal with it. What we do need to deal with is that volume, the volume of that track, and in order to do that, we want to be able to deal with all of these at the same time. So what let's do is let's paint over all of these tracks, and let's combine them into one big track. And the way we're going to do that is edit, clip boundaries, and join. So now that joins all of those into just one big long clip, so we don't have to worry about dealing with them separately. And then what we want to do is we want to take the volume of this down a little bit. There are a few different ways that we can do that, but the easiest way is with our envelope tool. And so let me click all of the audio, double click to select all of the audio that I want to deal with. I'm going to go back up here to my toolbox now. And in my toolbox, I have this little arrow, double arrow thing. It's called the envelope tool. I'm going to click on that guy. And now you see it's all of these lines, these kind of thick purple blue lines have appeared around all of the clips. That's what's called the envelope. And the envelope helps us control the loudness or the softness of any individual track at any given time. So we can control it in multiple different ways. But right now we want to control the whole track at the same time. So what we're doing is we're just going to click with that little envelope tool on the blue line, and we're going to drag it downwards. And as you can see, that's making that waveform get smaller and smaller and quieter and quieter. And now let's kind of listen to that and see. Yeah, that seems like a pretty good background volume. And you can look up here also, you see your playback level. and you can kind of compare that. A lot of times dialogue, we put around this negative 12 decibels line. And this is a measurement. Decibels are a measurement of how loud a sound is. And so if our dialogue's up here at the minus 12, well, this is down and it's a stereo, so you have a left channel and a right channel. But the highest that it's getting is up around the 24. That's probably okay. But just to be safe, let's give it a listen. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this solo button again so that we're no longer soloing that track. And now we're going to listen to it with our dialogue in there and see if that's a more appropriate level for our car noise. Let's listen.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us? Nah, I was sure I did. You mean back there? Yeah. Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man. Gentlemen, don't be alarmed. Joe, it's the guy what's dead. I mean... You mean the man you thought was dead? I'm very much alive, and so is the gun in my hand. Hey, what are you gonna do to us? If you follow orders, nothing. Now keep driving until we get out into the country. Anything you say, buddy. He was dead, and now he's alive. I never have been dead, my friend. I was merely in a cataleptic trance. A what? A cataleptic trance, you see. I am able to hypnotize myself as well as others. It's a known fact that expert hypnotists can put a person or themselves in...
It sounds pretty good to me. I think we're in a pretty good spot there as far as our sound mix. And again, it's a trial and error thing. You'll just have to play around with it to see where you want it to go. And once you've got it, then you'll be in good shape. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, at the end here, I'm going to take the last second or so just to fade this out. So effect and fade out so that at the end of our scene, our car noise fades out.
Not believe me? Perhaps you'd like me to try it on you.
Okay. You know what? I think I will. I don't think I had those quite lined up right. Let's take a listen again.
Death. But the whole prison was sure you was dead. There's something funny about all this. You do not believe me? Perhaps you'd like me to try it on you.
Okay. And so you can hear what happened there is, what actually happened is I had bumped those tracks at some point and they had overlapped each other and I didn't want them to overlap. And so now we have a problem because our sound is shorter than our track and it actually fades out now before our track does. That's not a problem. All we have to do is we will go in here and we can just take a section of that and let's create a split in the track. So we go up to our edit menu and we go down to our clip boundaries and we go to split. And now that puts a line right in there. We take our time shift and we're going to shift this so that it goes, a little further because we do want it to fade out after he is finished speaking. Put a little more of a fade effect on that. And then now I need something to fill this gap in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of this sound. I'm going to edit and copy. And then again, using my right cursor, just go to the end of that. And then I'm going to edit and paste. And it's going to tack it right on there. And then I can move this guy over, bump him up against. So I've got a continuous sound just like that. See, the nice thing about audio editing, we're now going to edit clip boundaries and join to make it one track again. There are no mistakes we can't undo in audio editing for the most part. Sometimes it can be harder, but as long as you continue to play with it and use the tools, then it should work. So let's listen.
Something funny about all this. You do not believe me? Perhaps you'd like me to try it on you.
Okay, good. Now we have all of our dialogue and we have our sound effects in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add some music. Now, I don't want to add any more tracks onto this just because it's a bunch more than we're going to want to look at all at once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export all of this because right now this is an Audacity file. It's not actually a sound file that you could listen to on your phone or on the internet. It's a special kind of file that Audacity uses. So I'm going to mix it down into a file that we can then load back up. It's going to compress all of these layers into one single layer of sound. And then as we add our theme music in, we're going to be able to deal with our theme music and this whole unit as two separate things. So let's go. We're going to go to File. We're going to go to Export, and we're going to export as MP3. MP3 is one of the most common formats for using on the internet. We're going to go to our Documents, Audacity, and we're going to call this. Let's see. We'll call this Scene Without Music. All right, and save. And it's going to ask us for this information. We don't need to fill any of that in for the time being. And now it's exported the audio. Perfect. So now that we've done that, we're going to open up a new file. All right. So here we have a new file. Now we're going to import. Our file that we just exported. So for that, we're just going to go to Import. And we'll go to Audio because it's an audio track. I'm going to choose right there. It's Scene Without Music. And now you can see all of those waveforms that we had before that were all separate, they're all compressed into one. But look, they still sound the same.
Something moving behind us? Nah, I was sure I did. You mean back there? Yeah. Oh, relax.
And it sounds pretty good. So all of those files are compressed into a single file. Deal with music. So if we want to move things around, it gets a lot easier. So in order to do that, first we need to find some music files. So let's do that, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so now we've got everything all together here. It's time for us to put our music in. And what I've done is I've gone online to the Free Music Archive, which again, I will give you a link in the description here. Free Music Archive is great because it's basically just a bunch of free music that you can use for your productions. And as long as you credit the authors appropriately, then you're perfectly free to use anything that's there. And I will credit the author of this particular track, the composer of this track, in the show notes there as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and import that. So we'll go to File, Import, Audio. And then right here, it's just called Detective Theme. So I'm going to put that in. And this was, I chose this track because it's kind of this thing's got a kind of a detective-y feel to it. And you can see that the music is actually a lot longer than I need. The music itself is in fact longer than the scene. And I only really want a few seconds of that. So let's zoom in here a little bit. And we can zoom in even more here with the keyboard shortcuts. And let's solo this, and let's listen to, now it looks like this is pretty loud, so I'm going to use the individual track volume here, or what's called the gain, and I'm going to turn it down a little bit so it's not quite so loud. Oh, okay, that's nice. It's in the middle, though. Got this kind of a jazzy... Okay, good, I like that. Well, let's take that much of it there, okay? So let's clip that there. So we're going to put our cursor where we want to make our split. We're going to go to Edit, and then we're going to go Clip Boundaries. We're going to go to Split. Okay. And then what we're going to do, where'd it go? I'm going to, let's see, track size, fit to width again. Okay. And then I'm going to edit and cut this. Now I don't want to completely get rid of it because I do want to bring it back at the end as it kind of comes out of the scene. So I've got that saved to my clipboard by cutting it out. I'm going to unsolo this track. And then I don't want these to overlap. So I'm going to time shift my my finished scene up here. All right. And then I do want a little bit of a fade out on this. So let's go fade out of maybe just a couple of seconds here. Let's zoom in a little bit so we've got more of a 1 second interval there. There we go. So let's go with a 2 or 3 second fade. I'm going to fade out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap this ambulance just over a little bit. So it's like we're coming right into the scene as the music ends. And let's listen and hear what that sounds like. We can check for our balance too to make sure I got the gain in the right place. Now remembering, I could have used that envelope tool here also, but because there was only the one track, it's easier for me to use the gain here. So let's listen. You know what? I think I actually want to fade that ambulance in a little sooner. And I think I want a little bit more of a fade out on the track as well. So let's just adjust those things as we go along. All right, let's give it another listen. Yeah, that sounds more like what I want. Maybe even bring that ambulance in just a touch sooner. But I like that. I like that fading between things. So it seems like there's continuous action. You never want to leave an audio audience with silence. That's the last thing they want to hear, is nothing, unless you're doing it for a reason. Sometimes silence can be very dramatic, but in this case, we don't want silence. We want forward movement. So let's go to the end of this thing, because we want to now fade back into our music for kind of our closing credits, if you will. I'm going to take my selection tool again, and I'm going to put it here at the end of the clip. And then if you'll remember, I still have the rest of my music on the clipboard. Now, if I didn't, it would be fine. I could re-import it again and clip it down however I want. But because I still have it, all I've got to do is go up to Edit, and then Paste. And there's the rest of my music, and it just picks up. And it just picks up right where we left it. But I think I want, actually, I'm going to scroll all the way over here and see what the end of it sounds like. Oh, yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I want to take that. So I'm going to take that the mark right where I had it, and I'm going to go to Edit and Clip Boundaries and Split. Or you can see there's a Control-I is also a shortcut for this. Okay, so now I have just this unit. I'm going to take this whole thing, double-click it, and then just delete it because I don't need it. Oops, wait a minute. Did it move that? Come back here. Okay, yeah, and it just shifted this other track back, so to where actually I kind of want it. Now I do want a little bit of an overlap, right? But over that overlap, I want to make sure that I'm fading into this. So Effect. We're going to go fade in, and I'm going to reapply that fade in effect. And what that's going to do is it's going to do kind of a double fade in, and that way it's a little bit more of a fade to where we want it to be. Now, the gain is still set for the track, so even though this looks loud, it's still going to be fine, in balance the way that our other one was. So let's listen to the end of this scene and see if it works.
Funny about all this. You do not believe me? Perhaps you'd like me to try it on you.
All right, that sounds pretty good. We can make a few more little adjustments to the way that fades in maybe, and just have it come in a little bit sooner. But by and large, we've got a pretty good little ending to this thing. And so now we have our sound effects, we have our dialogue, we have our music. Everything is pretty much where we want it to be. So let's look at this again. Let's go to View, Track Size, Fit to Width, and let's File, Export. We're going to export this down to an MP3, because now we want it all to be in one single file so we can listen to it beginning to end. Export as MP3. This time we're going to call it Final Scene, because this is our final version unless we choose to make other tweaks. We'll save it. That's going to fill some information in here that's about the composer of the music, because that was down here already saved to this. So don't worry about any of that. We'll clear it out for the time being, because we'll credit him in the notes. All right, now we've got everything. So now we're going to go File, we're going to go Open, and we're going to open this final scene and see what it looks like, see what the waveform looks like. And there it is. That's our whole scene right there, the way that we've recorded it. So what I'm going to do now is I'll mute my microphone, I'm going to play that for you, and we'll listen to what our final product sounds like.
Hey, Joe, did you hear something move behind us? Nah, I was sure I did. You mean back there? Yeah. Oh, relax, brother. There's no one back there except a dead man. Gentlemen, don't be alarmed.
Joe, it's the guy what's dead. I mean...
You mean the man you thought was dead? I'm very much alive, and so is the gun in my hand. Hey, what are you gonna do to us? If you follow orders, nothing. Now keep driving until we get out into the country. Anything you say, buddy.
He was dead, and now he's alive.
I never have been dead, my friend. I was merely in a cataleptic trance.
A what?
A cataleptic trance, you see. I'm able to hypnotize myself as well as others. It's a known fact that expert hypnotists can put a person or themselves into a trance, which very much resembles death.
But the whole prison was sure you was dead. There's something funny about all this.
You do not believe me? Perhaps you'd like me to try it on you.
And there we have it. That's our final clip. I think it sounds pretty good. Now, there's a lot of little tweaks I'd like to go in there and make, and maybe I'll do that over time. But for today, I think we've got a good product, and I think we've got something good to listen to. So let's go ahead and wrap it up now. All right, my friends, so there we have it. That's the whole package. That is how, from start to finish, to make your own audio drama production, from the basics of acting and how we create characters, to how we use our voices in order to make those characters sound interesting to our audience, to recording techniques and how to put those voices on recorded media, and then finally how to edit everything all together, add your sound effects, add your music, give it a little bit of pizzazz. So your last assignment is put your audio drama together, and then go ahead and email me a copy if you'd like to. I'd love to see it. I'd love to listen to it and to hear it, and maybe even share some of these again on our YouTube channel. I hope that you've enjoyed this series. It's been a lot of fun for me to put together. I look forward to putting together even more performing arts series for you as the weeks come. And I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but I'll be back in just a few weeks with the next one of those as I'm developing it now. So thank you so much for joining me. Again, I hope you've had fun. I want you to remember, stay safe, stay healthy, stay indoors, and most importantly, stay creative. I'll see you next time.